Hi, everyone, and welcome to a Smart Start Pekin workshop. We are so excited to have our friends here from Reference Solutions. It is a database that you can access through the Pekin Public Library with your library card. It's a free resource that you can use to help build your business. And we are going to talk about some ways that you can use this to build your business that we found was quite amazing. We did this in another community in the past, and I just wanted to share with you if you're wondering if this is the right solution for you, if this is a resource that will help you in your business. Here's a few examples, and if these sound like something that you can use in your business, you're going to want to stick around. So we actually had a local coffee shop who used the database to figure out all the people who have moved into her community in the last 3 months, was able to figure out who they were, and then every 3 months sends them a welcome to town coupon for a free coffee. And so she's starting to see people utilize that. We had a individual who owned a remodeling company. So he was able to find the mail routes in his community with the highest concentration of houses over 20 years old that probably need a little touch up. He was able to send direct mail just to those neighborhoods. You could actually sync that up and then use the US postal system to deliver those for you. We actually had another business that dealt mostly, her ideal customer was young families, and she was able, just like that remodeler, to go in and use that data to figure out which neighborhoods have the highest concentration of young families, so she could direct her direct mail specifically to that area, so she doesn't have to send something to every person in town. And so it kept her costs down and was more directed at her ideal customer. You can also use this as market research if you're just starting a business and you want to learn who are your competition? What are the size of your competition? You might you might Google and you might find, wow, there are 5 other businesses in the region that do what I do. But by using this database, you can actually look at their revenue and look at what they're doing and what their business is actually up to if they're current. And you can figure out maybe only 2 of those 5 that you thought were like yours are actually competitors. And you can find more information about them that will help you figure out if there's a niche within there that you can differentiate yourself from. So you can do that all with this Reference Solutions database. And we are so excited to have Bill Carlson here today from Reference Solutions to help us and walk us through this. So I'm going to hand things over to him. I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to let him share exactly how we can use this database. So Bill, it's all yours.
Perfect, Marcy. Thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. As Marcy mentioned, you can get access to the database through your library, obviously, if they participate. So you can always feel free to reach out to the library and ask them if they have Data Axle Reference Solutions as a source that's available online. You could certainly always give us a call. I'll show you where our 800 number information is. I'm going to go ahead and shut off my screen simply because I have a tendency to talk with my hands and I don't want to distract anyone. So as you can see, I'm using the Pekin Public Library's access to the database. With the database, you have access, at least through this library. Libraries can choose to either include all of our modules, which this library has chosen to do, but some may only offer 4 or 5 or 6 of these various modules. They would always generally have the business database module, and that's the one we'll start with today. Know that with these modules, we do give you the ability to download information if you would like to. Maybe you want to make a call list of businesses that you're going to reach out to. You can always do that. We also give you the ability, if you would like, to create this personal account. So once you've registered using whatever email address and that password that you create, you can log in and you can save any of your searches that you would do through 10 out of these 11 modules. There is one, isn't there always just one exception? That exception is the jobs and internships. All the other modules, you can certainly save your queries and come back to them at whatever point in time is good for you. The nice thing about that is we will always give you the latest and greatest information that we have at that time based on those filters that you first used to build your search. So let's get right into that. On the business database, this is being call verified. This information is being call verified. So we have three record types. We have our verified records. We have records called unverified, which you can get to. You can bring those into the mix. We simply weren't able to get those businesses, but that does not mean that they don't exist. And then the third type of business would be our closed businesses. So we keep all of that information in the US business database, and we're updating this monthly. It's actually the third Thursday of every month. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the US business database. I'll always come to this quick search tab. Could certainly look for a particular company, whether it be by company name or legal name. You could look for an executive. You can look at all businesses in any given city and state, and even do a reverse phone number lookup. One of the tools that I like to introduce from Quick Search, mind you, whenever we're searching for any of these queries, they're always going to be our verified records. I can get to those unverified or closed businesses if I'd like to once I go to advanced search, but these are going to be just mine that are verified. So I'm going to do this. We're going to look at the city here and just get a look from that perspective of how many businesses do they have across the community. So I have these 1,611 results. The tool I want to show you is this charts tool. What this will deliver when I select it, click on it, it will break down all these businesses by the type of business that they're in. So that's the SIC code. That's the Standard Industrial Classification Code. All businesses, whether they're for-profit or not-for-profit, government built agencies, etc., would all have their own SIC code. So we give you, in this case, the top 7. That's these 350. So at the top of that list, we have those physicians and surgeons, followed in this case by, notice, automated teller machines. So we do have records for those as well as for all different types of kiosks as well. In third position would be those restaurants, then dentists, counselors, insurance, and churches. So there's my top 7. By the way, I can print this information off or make it part of a PowerPoint. And we will also give you then a complete list. Notice this is 24 pages in length. We always give you that breakdown in terms of those SIC codes that they're under, the descriptions for them, and then the number of records that apply. So if I wanted to get into this group of beauty salons, I could just click on that 15 and it will launch me into that group of beauty salons. So even when I'm in this chart universe, I do have the ability to pull up just the records that are of importance to me. And of course, I could switch this up to the zip codes in the area. Maybe that's more important to me, understanding what businesses are in what zip codes. And I could always go and select this group, or maybe I want to select this smaller group, and then I could get its breakdown by the SIC codes as well. So know you have that kind of dynamic movement. Could also look at it from a sales volume standpoint. So as we're call verifying this information, this would be one question we do not ask businesses. We model that sales volume information based on some elements like how long they've been in business, right? There's value in that length of time. So we're looking at how long they've been in business, the line or lines of business that they might be in. You know, they could do 2, 3, 4, 5 different things, right? So we'll capture that kind of insight. How many employees do they have? And about 72% of the businesses will give us an exact number. So some great information that you could certainly always take advantage of. We do get information through the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And then the last and final piece of that puzzle in terms of modeling that sales information is, where is that business located in the United States? Because we're going to allow for differences with taxes. So I can certainly get to any of those kinds of records as well. Or maybe that employment number is more important to me. I always have this broken down as well. Again, all printable, can be made part of a PowerPoint. So let me go back to those results. It's one thing to do a quick search. It's another to do an advanced search, and that's where I'm at now. I've selected this tab, so it's given me my advanced search. I can search by company name, legal name, etc. These filters don't necessarily get a lot of use because, generally speaking, people are looking for as many businesses with a name, not necessarily by a name. But if I needed to look for 2 or 3 or 4 businesses by a name, I can add them one at a time and add them to my list here, and then select whatever geography is important for me, and I can get to those particular records. But like I say, these filters don't get a lot of use because we're always going to give you this information. Same would be true with this executive information. I can tell you from our usage reports that the executive title does get a fair amount of use. And really, if you're looking, had a gentleman who called up from Wisconsin a few days ago, and he was looking for businesses that had these types of executives listed. He wanted human resources or human resources executives, and that was going to be it. So when we went into his county, not nearly as many records as what he thought he should be getting. And I suggested to him that he might also want to include those businesses that have an owner present. That owner, well, may be that human resources executive for that company, along with the chief bottle washer, right? So know that you can certainly add filters here that are important enough to you that you want to use those filters to produce those records. Otherwise, we'll always give you this information. And we do have gender and ethnicity here. You'll notice we also have, under ownership, female, veteran, and minority-owned businesses. We're getting this information through the PPP loans that these folks have been awarded. So if that were a particular type of search that you'd want to do, you could certainly use those filters as well. We do give you the ability, based on the type of business that you're interested in, we give you the ability to search for it by a keyword. If you happen to know an SIC code or even the NAICS codes, you could certainly use those. But most people will simply do a keyword search. As it notes here, I'm looking for restaurants. I'm looking for manufacturers. I'm looking for plumbers. I'm looking for whatever type of industry it is that's important to me. I can add as many of those one at a time, again, searching for that. And I'll show you this here in just a second. I do want to point out this major industry group as well. It is just the SIC codes, and it's just as Uncle Sam had originally set these up. So they used to be a maximum of a 4-digit number. They always began with a 2-digit, and then they evolved to a 4-digit, and that's where it stopped. So we have those 2 digits here. As you can see, under construction, there's 15, maybe a 16, and a 17. If you click the plus symbol next to it, it will open it up and it gives you that look. So I've got my definitions for each of those 2-digit codes. If we were, let's say we're looking for information about businesses that would be found under general contractors, I can go to that 4-digit, And that was the extent that Uncle Sam took it. We added 2 additional digits to make it a minimum of 6. So look at all of the various specific types of businesses we were able to categorize by adding simply those 2 additional digits. So if somebody's looking for, but they couldn't remember handyman services, right? They couldn't remember the title for that, but they could find it here. And if that's what they want, they can put a check mark next to it. And if they want to make certain that this is the type of business that these handyman services are involved in and day out, because any general contractor could say, technically, I'm a handyman as well, right? If you need that to be their primary line of business, though, you could add that as a selection and only get those businesses that are handyman services. They wake up each and every day and perform those kinds of tasks. So no, you can use either that keyword search or the major industry group to drive in the type of businesses that you're most interested in. Sometimes I do receive phone calls from patrons who are looking for businesses by the products that they produce. That's not how the database is set up. It is set up based on the industry they're in, not by the products that they might create. Let me remove that, and we'll get back to this keyword search here momentarily. Certainly have a variety of ways that you can look at geography. This is a new addition, so we're constantly enhancing the database. This is a new option that we've added so that you can identify only records with a highly deliverable address. In other words, Uncle Sam knows which businesses do a good job of retrieving their mail and which businesses may not do such a great job. So if you are intending on sending a mailer, and Marcy mentioned that earlier, by all means, you might want to employ this so that you can make certain that your mail piece is going to get in front of that audience that's important to you. So know that that's available. We give you a variety of ways that you can look at that phone information. Again, that doesn't get a lot of use because we'll always give you that information. Business size, that number of employees I mentioned, about 72% of those businesses give us that exact number. Those that choose not to answer that question for whatever reason, those that choose not to answer that question, what we'll do is we'll look at their peers based on the SIC code that they're under, and we'll assign a range instead. And you'll always be able to identify that when you go into any of our records. So that's always going to be available to you. Certainly that sales volume can be used if you wanted to look at businesses based on a certain size of sales volumes that they're probably generating. By all means, definitely use that. Ownership, we give you public or private, headquarters or branch, and there are 2 other designations under here that I always like to point out because one of them gets a lot of use. So we do have those businesses that have a subsidiary, or those businesses that are single location businesses. This gets a lot of use. So no, you can always frame your search using that filter as well, if that's important information. Otherwise, we're always going to give it to you. It'll always be there for you. So we have certainly home-based businesses. If that's a type of business that you would like to either include or maybe you want to exclude them, you can do either of that when selecting that filter. We give you a variety of ways as it relates to that financial data. Please understand that the business expenditures, just like with the sales volume, we're going to model that information. Then we have some special selects. Do you want companies that have a web address, or maybe you'd rather they didn't have one? Do you want to look at companies based on the social links they might use? You could certainly use that as a filter. One of the filters I like to point out is years in the database, and I like it over year established because we don't have 100% of our records with the year established. However, on the other hand, we do have 100% of them with how many years they've been in our database. So if you were looking for, let's say that you're looking for businesses that are newish, but you don't want them to be 1 year or even 2 years old. Maybe you want them to be at least 3 years old up to 6 years. You could make that part of your query, and then you'll get just those business records based with that information. So that could be a great way to filter in or out the types of records that you'd like to review or see. And we do give you, and I like to point this one out, professionals. We know that a lot of times people are going to download the information because they're going to make mailing labels. With that professional information, we saw that in the example I gave with all of the businesses in the city, physicians were at the top of that list. If you wanted to include the physician's office, but you did not want to include every physician in that office, you could choose this as an option and go with one versus all, right? You're going to get one primary contact at that doctor's office as we know it. So great way, again, if you're looking at ways to save on your marketing dollar, that might be a great way to do that. And then we give you a number of ways by which to exclude information. So you can literally omit anything, right? If you didn't want those ATMs or any of those kiosks, you could select that and exclude all of those. Maybe you're looking at the entire county and you want to exclude 1 or 2 cities within a county. You could always do that. It just depends on how you might want to frame your search. You can even choose to omit previously saved searches. Again, up to you how you want to present that or get to that data. So let's do this. Let's go into keyword search, and we're going to look across the entire county. So I like to use restaurants simply because there are so many of them, and I'll always get enough records. And notice I'm looking at all SIC codes. So this is my 6-digit for all restaurants. So fast food, fine dining, right? Everything's included. And we'll grab Illinois here, and I did. What did I do? There it is. Tazewell. And I have a total as it relates to restaurants. I have 275 of those restaurants. I can get into those results, or if I wanted to change this designation from searching all SIC codes to primary only, let's see what that will do in terms of a reduction in this number. So in this case, it dropped it down to 199 from that 275. So clearly 76 of those businesses weren't first and foremost restaurants. They may well have been bowling alleys that happen to have a restaurant in them, but since that's not their primary line of business, we've taken them out of the mix. Think about every convenience store you've probably ever been in, right? A lot of them have tables and an area that they designate as their restaurant area. So we've taken them out of the mix as well. So I can get to just that group of 199 if I'd like. Let's go in there. So I have, of course, a company name. We'll always give you that company name. In the executive name, where we get that information, right? We've got that street information, city, state, zip, phone, and then I've got this corporate tree insight. And by the way, I can change this column. If I'd like to know the title for these executives, I could change this from that corporate to that title information. And then I get that broken down. So if that would be important to you, you can always look at that. Of course, as you can see, I could look at sales volumes if that were something important to me. Just depends. I have all of that information inside the record, but if you wanted to be able to just have that at a glance here on this far right-hand side, you could do so. I'm going to leave it with corporate tree because I want to show you a couple of things here. So we'll go with this Arby's record, right? I have an up arrow and then I have this icon. This is an org chart icon. The up arrow is going to take me to one record. That's either going to be the subsidiary responsible for all of these Arby's, or if there weren't one, it would take me to the ultimate parent. This is going to show me their entire structure. So let me select that real quick. So here's my Arby's in East Peoria. They report up to this Arby's restaurant group out of Atlanta, but they're ultimately owned by this Work Capital Group. It's a private equity firm also out of Atlanta. They have some 47 total subsidiaries and nearly 62,000 branches. We do have this legend that runs across the top here, so you can always identify what this PV represents, in this case, a private company. And if you wanted to see these other 46 subsidiaries, you simply collapse or close that, and there they are. So Arby's is akin to all of these other business, Annie Ann's, Baskin Robbins, Buffalo Wild Wings. Here's Carl's Jr. I know we don't have any of those in the Midwest, but we do have Carl's cousin here by the name of Hardy. So you can get to all of that kind of data. And I'm sure as you're looking at this list, you recognize a lot of these companies. Jimmy John's. They used to own Massage Envy. They just sold them off. In fact, they used to own Quiznos. They sold them off a few years ago. You may be familiar with an outdoor sporting company called Cabela's. They used to own them as well. They sold them off. In fact, Bass Pro bought them out. So all of that kind of information can be found by just launching that corporate tree insight. And by the way, I can get to that corporate tree information either outside the record as I did here, or when you open the record up, we're also going to give you that same access, which it's always listed under these quick links. So that corporate tree information will always be there available to you as well. We'll always start off with this location information. Of course, that name, address, etc., phone number, website, social links. No job openings listed through ZipRecruiter for this location. Then we have this industry profile. So there's that SIC code that drove in all these restaurants. In this case, we do have a business profile. We also have on each of our records, we'll have this map view. So you can always deploy that map view as well. You could print this off if you wanted to. You could use the street view. Just depends on what you might need. So know that that's available. You always have to open it. It will always come closed. And then you can open that if need be. So we last updated this annual record in September of last year. So the next update is September of 25. When we contacted them, they told us that they had 18 employees. We know it's a private company, ultimately owned by Work Capital Group here. They've been in our database for a couple of minutes anyway, 23 years. Have some of those hours of operation. There's that management information. Company news, we get this through Bing, and it's literally loaded on the fly. So if you wanted to review that, you certainly could. No stock data on this particular company for two reasons. They're private, number one. Number two, even if it were public, we would never have stock data on a branch. It's only going to be on that parent company. And then, of course, we have some of those business expenditures. followed by UCC filing. So if they've taken out a loan and put something up as collateral, that would be captured there. We do have nearby businesses. I've talked to a lot of salespeople who are interested in this nearby information as well, because it might be businesses that they would want to call on as well. And then, of course, a list of competitors. So I'll always have that list of competitors. The only time you won't see competitors if we're looking at a nonprofit, a church, something like that, we're not going to have competitors listed. And then, of course, I have some historical information, including historical years. So note that this goes back to 2003, but we actually go as far back as 1997. We just don't show those earlier records. But as soon as you decide to open up one of these years, let's start with 12. 12 was a good year. We'll open up 2012. And you can see from my slide, that's the year that I've opened up, but it will go back. In fact, it doesn't go back beyond the 03 in this case, but if it did, it would just simply list those additional years listed there. So no, you can always, and this is active. So if I wanted to go ahead in time or backwards in time, I could certainly do so. We do track address changes, all of that type of information. So that would be listed as well. One of the things I want to show you is this data feedback button. And I'm going to go back to the top of my record because that same information is in fact listed right here. Let's imagine for a moment that you know this particular business. And let's say that they have, instead of 18 employees, they actually have 22. You could tell us about that, and that will be sent off to our team that does that research. So by selecting that data feedback button, as it notes here, if you select this, it's going to go off to this team of researchers who, based on what you've selected here or the free form note, let's say it were that number of employees, and that it was actually 22. You can put that in there, fill out this information, submit this to us. We'll send you back a response immediately thanking you for that information. And then within 2 to 3 business days, we'll get back to you regarding the completion of that information. So I had one that I did for a restaurant that I saw in New York City, and we were able to update the we were able to update their website. We were able to update the contact information. They refused to update the number of employees, even though I got that count from their website. So just depends. If businesses don't want to answer that, they don't have to. So know that that is always something that anyone could do with any of our information here. Send that through to us. We certainly appreciate that kind of insight. That's that crowdsourcing. Let me go back to this list. So I have the ability to chart this since I'm only looking at these 199 records. And by the way, with the chart functionality, it will only deploy if you have at least 50 records or more. So if it's 49 or less, it will not deploy the chart. But in this case, I'm clearly beyond that, so it will break that down. And this initially is going to break it down by the cities that they're in, because I told the system, I'm looking at restaurants and I'm looking at them in this county. So the first thing it does is it gives you that breakdown by city. Could certainly do that zip code, can certainly look at that from that sales volume standpoint or that number of employees. And I also have another tool, might as well introduce this here as well. It's a density map. And Marcy was talking about an individual that was using the database to identify their business's competition. Let's say that I have a restaurant here in the county, and I want to get a sense of my competition. I can put all of that information on this heat map And what it will do is it will take me into that particular area and it will pinpoint. So because I have fewer than 300 records, it actually pinpoints all these locations for me. And obviously I know where my business is either open at, or maybe I plan on opening a restaurant. I need to decide where I want to perhaps open that restaurant. I can see clearly what I have for competition, but maybe my restaurant is a little bit more unique because it's X, right? I'm doing X with my restaurant. Depends on how you need to look at that data and utilize that kind of insight. So know you can always print this information off or make it part of a PowerPoint as well. Let me revise this, and I'll show you another example, what it looks like when it's over that threshold of 300 records. You do have the ability, as I mentioned earlier, to download this record information. I'm using the access through my access here at work. So my record count is much higher than yours. Yours would be 250 at a time, 250 records at a time. Please note that there are 25 records per page here. If you wanted all of them, you simply put a check mark in that empty box, and then you use this right toggle to go and advance to page 2, and then you keep repeating that step, right? So you would grab all 10 pages, and once you've reached that 10th page, I'll pretend that I'm there right now, you would select your download. Notice you could save your searches. You could print this information. When you print, it's one page at a time. I'll select my download. The first thing it's going to ask is, what file format do you want to use? Comma delimited tends to be most popular because it is mailing label friendly. Second step, what level of detail? Do you want just the name of the and address along with that phone number? It will give you that owner's name or title. It'll give you that number of employees, that sales volume, etc. Do you want the detailed record? In other words, everything that I showed you with that Arby's record? Or do you want to customize your search? You won't have this step 3 as an option for you. You'll go right to these two options. Do you want to email those records to yourself? Pretty simple. You select that, you put in your email address. Maybe you're going to send an email to yourself and a friend that you're working with. You could by all means do that, right? You can add as many of those email addresses as you need and then name your search, right? What is this? What is this search about? At which point in time you're going to send that email and it will send you a message that it was successfully delivered. Or do you want to be the keeper of the downloads and simply do that download into Excel? You could certainly do that as well. Once you're done, you do need to go back. Truly, if I'd done all 10 pages, I'd have had my 199 captured, right? I wouldn't have even had to have gone beyond page, I'd have gone to 9, I guess. Nope, that would have been it right there. So once I've done that download, if that's all I need, I can just exit and get out and do whatever else I need to be able to do. So you can come in and out of the database as frequently as you need to. No limits, no nothing. Let's do this. Let me revise this search slightly and let's add some additional filters. So I'm going to ask the system to give me companies with a web address. And I want them to have a certain number of employees. So I can add as many of these filters or as few of them as I'd like. I'm going to add another county, and I'm going to blow this up because I'm going to add this county that I'm sure everyone in Illinois is familiar with, called Cook. Where are you? There you're down here somewhere. There you are. So I'll add that. My number is going to get really big here really quick. So 3,734 now that are verified records. As you noticed, I also can pull in, if I wanted to, those unverified. Simply put, not fully verified, it may not be accurate. Or those that are closed, right? And this closed business file is a running 12 months. So as soon as February it concludes and we run into March, anything February 24 would fall out and only be seen then as a closed record in our historical business information. So this is a running 12 months. Let's do this. We've added those two additional. I'm gonna deselect the county for this one. I'm going to use the map-based search tool. This might be a tool that you would really like to be able to take advantage of. And in fact, I'm going to throw in one more title. I'm going to grab just those with an owner present. And there's my map tool is right here. I'm going to open this. Now, all of these filters that I'm showing you, granted, if I'm in the consumer lifestyles data, I'm not going to have anything that talks about sales volumes. I will have information that talks about home value or home income. So all of the filters, all of the processes that support the delivery of this information is the same no matter which of these modules we might be in. So let's do this. Let's just put in, we'll go back. And I do have to grab my Illinois and I'll say go. So it takes me right there to the community. I have the ability to draw my own shape. I can use a true radius if I'd like. I do have some predetermined boundaries. I could even create a drive route. So with the predetermined boundaries, it starts as large as the state. But I could overlay, for example, the zip codes in the area. Oh my, I better back out because those are some big zip codes. Look at 61554. That's quite a large zip code. So with the zip codes, I've already told the system I'm looking for restaurants of a certain size based on number of employees. They must have an owner present and they must have a web address. So do I find any in this zip code? You simply click there and there are 5 results in that zip code that match my criteria. I could go up here by Peoria. And how about this one? 4 in that one, 0 there. 03 is a 0 as well. So you can see, you can overlay and utilize these boundaries any way you would like to. So take advantage of that if that would be useful. I'm going to go back to my tools. I'm going to draw my own shape. So you simply click on the icon and then where do you want to begin? I'm going to start right down here by midway. It's a single click to begin it. A single click to change direction. So I'm going to come right up here and I'm going to come right over here. That's my territory or my area of interest for whatever reason. Double click it to finalize it, and then it will calculate how many, in this case, there are 32 in that shape that match my information. If that's all I need, I can simply say done here. And as you can see, I'm ready to give you those 32. All you do is click on view results. So that's always available. And this draw shape or this true radius, both of these will go out a maximum of 150 miles. So let's say that this is where I wanted to begin. Click, hold it, drag it away. And as you can see, I'm already out to about 15 miles there. I'm going to go a little further. There's a little over 20. So in that radius, I have 58 results that match my criteria. But you know what? Now that I think about it, there are a couple of areas that I want to omit. How can I omit? Absolutely. I'm going to omit. I'm going to start over here by banner. And I'm just going to come here, up to here, over to Mapleton, and back over here. double click to finalize it. Oh, and when you note there's 0 in that shape. So if there were, they would be deducted automatically from that 58. But in this case, there were none. So you get the idea how that works. I can choose to omit anything by simply double clicking in that new shape, selecting exclude, and then say okay. So if there were results in there, they would have been excluded now. So know you can use these tools any way that makes sense for you based on any of the modules that you would have access to, which are all 11 of them anyway. So know that this is a tool that's available in those modules as well. Once you're done, you select that, and then there are my results. So know you can get pretty creative with being able to identify businesses that are important to you. I can remember helping a patron who was down in Florida. They were outside of Daytona Beach, and they wanted to identify certain businesses just on the beach side of I-95. So that's what I ended up showing them, how to draw that shape. And they just went right down I-95, and they only identified that area between I-95 and the beach, both north and south of Daytona Beach. So great way to be able to use the database. Let's do this. We talked about downloading and saving the search. We introduced the charts and the heat map. I'm going to select reference solutions. You can always select reference solutions. Sometimes I've been known to click too quick, and the database will simply sit there and spin. If you get that spin going, just simply click on reference solutions. It'll bring you right back here to the home page, and then you can go back into the database that you were working within and start all over, right? It's a refresh. So let's do this. Let's take a look at the new movers, new homeowners information. So let me launch that again. You'll always come to that quick search. We're getting this data and we're updating this universe each and every week. We're getting it through our license agreement with the USPS National Change of Address. So I always like to show this move distance and time frame. So let's say that I want to identify businesses that have, or excuse me, consumers that have moved into an area, but I don't want to know about people who've moved around within Peking. I want to be able to find people that are brand new. So I'm going to say that the community end to end, I'm looking at this distance in terms of miles. I'm going to say it's 15 miles across. And I'm going to get both coasts. So I'm going to say, give me 2,700 miles on either side. Notice the default is the last 6 months. Could be as recent as last week. Marcy mentioned the last 3 months. One of those individuals that she worked with was using it every 3 months. You can see it's within the last year. So you decide what this needs to look like. I'll go with that default of 6 months, and then I'm just going to put in the city, and at that time it will go ahead and give me all of those results for people who've moved from at least 15 miles away up to this 2,700. So I have 125 in the last 6 months that have moved into the community. If that were the group that I wanted to take a look at, or maybe I want to see if I can push that number up. Does that double if I go out the full year? A little over double, right? So I've got 263 in the last year. I can get into that information. It's always going to give me that first name, last name. There's that street address, city, state, zip. Rarely are you ever going to see a phone number because that's not something that someone needs to fill out on that national change of address. Notice we do have this home ownership. So I've got renters, Probable homeowners, here with these non-availables, we just weren't able to make a call one way or the other. And then we have those confirmed homeowners. Let's say that let's say that I own a yard care service, and now that spring is somewhere around the corner, I hope really closely, I want to be able to just identify these confirmed or probable homeowners. I have that ability. I can always revise this search, and I can ask the system to give me, based on that home ownership, just those that are confirmed or probable homeowners. I can tell you when I know that I have renters in the audience or insurance salespeople, they love to see these renters, right? That's a group that for them is hard to get a hold of. So we have that insight. So of that 263, I have 64 that are confirmed or probable homeowners out of that group. If that's the audience that I want, by all means, I've got that. Not only do I have that home ownership, but I can change this up to that move distance. So if that's important to me, I've got that broken down as well. And here's the information that you'll see. It'll always give you that name and address information, how far away they move. So in this case, it's 24 miles, which is clearly outside of that 15 that I asked for. Then we get this census block group and track number information, which allows us to overlay then these estimates. So if I know that most of my clientele, let's say, are in this range of that 50 to 75, I could always go back and I could apply by revising my search. I can always go back or forth, right? So I can come into this estimated home income, and maybe I want to use this as my lowest threshold. So I'll go ahead and grab those. As you can see, I can grab as many of these as I would like. Now, of this 64, what do I have remaining at this point? So now I have 22, but I know those 22 are going to be those types of customers that I've worked with many times. So if that's a search or a filter that you would like to use, by all means, you've got that available to you. Let's do this. Let me view those results. Downloading works the same way with these records. In fact, since I only have 22, I only have one page that I would need to download. Charts works the same way. Of course, the heat map is going to work the same way, and it's going to deploy that information based on where they've moved. So there's that look at where those folks have moved that are those homeowners and that have those income ranges. So if that's important to you, I know that oftentimes people will include that in their business plans, right? That information will be included in their business plans. Let me do this in the interest of time. I want to show you. So I'm going to switch gears here. I'm going to leave the new movers, new homeowners, and we're going to take a look at the consumer lifestyles. Helped a gentleman who was looking to start a second business. He owns a pet store in a community that's down along the coastline of Florida, just about straight south of Tallahassee. So he's looking to come inland and wanted to get a sense of the number of pet lovers in this area where he's looking at opening up his second business. So he'd already done the homework as it relates to the other pet stores. Now he wanted to be able to identify those pet lovers. So we have under advanced search, the first thing I'd point out is we have that default is always to the all per household. I encourage people change it up to one per household, one name, one address, right? And now I can select those lifestyle characteristics, and I have those for pets and animals. So we're getting this information literally from hundreds of different sources. Surveys people have completed, purchases made, through a credit card processor that we're acquiring that information about those purchase types through. Could be through subscriptions they have, memberships they've joined. I was not in this database when I first moved back into Omaha, but because I needed to start buying my dog some special formula for his sensitive stomach, I became known as a dog lover in the database because of my activity through Petco. And I did sign up for a PALS membership. So let's grab these three. I'll leave horses off, although my dog thought he was a horse, or at least ate like one. So I'll list just those three designations, and let's just do the city. I'm going to do the entire county. I want to get a larger number so I can show you that heat map from that perspective. And I have my one per, my dog lovers, cat lovers, and gerbil lovers. So I have 8,286. Now, just like with what I showed you in the new movers, new homeowners, I do have that estimated home income based on the census block group and tract number that this dwelling is within, right? So it always gives us that neighborhood view. If that were information that I wanted to also utilize, I could do so. Let me show you a little trick. I'm going to pull up this 8,200 and I'm going to chart these folks. What you could do if this were important information, notice it always defers to, at least initially, the home value, but I could overlay that home income. Maybe I want to decide, okay, I'm going to focus on either maybe one or two of these large ones first. Maybe I'm going to start off with a couple of the smaller ones or medium-sized ones first and see how my marketing message is reaching that audience. So you could do some test marketing, in other words. You could mix it up and include a few from each category if you wanted to. It's completely up to you. Again, you can print this off, make it part of a PowerPoint. But what I would suggest is, with that kind of insight, you can always revise your search and then just include those income levels that are of interest to you. So I'll do those three. What does that give me then when I have, so I still have 2,200 at that point across the county that match my criteria. I can go into that, and this is what my density map would look like when I have more than 300 records. I'll always be given it in this fashion. So as you can see in these red areas, obviously there's a lot of folks in those areas that are pet lovers. Where it's yellow, obviously fewer, green less. Where there's gaps or holes, there are simply no dwellings in that area that have those pet lovers within them. So this can be a great tool that you can also print off or include in a PowerPoint. And as it relates to that data, now notice, whenever we're talking about consumer information, and we even put that on our new movers, new homeowners, even though we don't have phone numbers on those folks, any of these phone numbers that might be displayed could be on the do not call list and should not be used for phone solicitation. Ultimately, you're responsible for the compliance with that at the federal, state, and certainly local level. If you need a list that you can call against, there's couple of ways you can do that. You could download this list and then send it to the do not call registry folks. They would clean your list and send you back those phone numbers and names, etc., that you could call against, or you can have us do that for you. That way you don't even have to build the list. Of course, we'll charge as well. So this is the information you're going to see when you open up that record. It's going to give you that name and address information, everything we've seen. This person appears married, been in this home for a couple of minutes anyway. There's that neighborhood information. So that census block group and tract number, along with that income information and home value. And then we make some adjustments to that based on when that census was last done. And then here are those lifestyle indicators. The only reason these records came in is because of their love of cats and pets in general, or general pets. Could be goldfish or gerbils, right? So know that there is a scoring mechanism that pushes these records one way or the other. And that scoring mechanism, let me go back and revise this slightly. That scoring description is right here. So as it notes here, it's 0 through 9. Anybody who's a 0, it simply means they have no interest in the category that was selected, so their record will not show. However, if they're a 9, they're very interested in that particular category, and their record will show. We'll only deploy records for individuals who score a 6 or higher. So they have to be active, like I was with my dog while he was still alive. I was in the database as that dog lover because of all those purchases I was making for him. Then when he passed, of course, I fell out of the database within 2 to 3 months because of my inactivity. So no, it's all about that level of activity. So take advantage of the database. Use some of these different filters in order to produce results that would be best for you. Know that you have support through the library. Our information is always listed here. So you have both our 800 number as well as our email address as well. And in order to find data axle reference solutions through the library, what I typically do is just bring up the library. So I'll bring up the public library here and search for that. Not now, thank you. Here's the website. I can select it. We're under research. So what you would do is hover over that research and you can see it's got research and learn here. When you select that, it opens up this new page and you simply scroll down a little ways to there's data axle reference solutions. Once you click here, it will ask you to accept our terms and conditions. Put a check mark next to that, hit accept, and then you would enter your library card number and have access to reference solutions. I can't show you that part because I'm already in my own access here and it wouldn't allow me to advance into the library's version. Marcy, any comments or questions or any additional insights you'd like me to point out or cover?
Is there any way we can show how you got down to like the mail routes in the when you pulled up the in some of the demographic data in the communities?
In the consumer lifestyles?
Yes.
So,
For instance, we had that the person who wanted to know where the demographic homes that might need a remodeler.
So you're referring to the consumer snapshot data.
Okay.
And you're referring to, I believe it was it years in the home or year home was built?
Year home built would be a good one.
Okay. So no, whenever you would include any of these selections. So let's just do this. Let's go into, we'll just pull up the city again. Look at there. It's already showing up in my searches. So there I am. I'm going to do one per household. And let's say that I want to skip these more recent years. And I'm going to say, you know what, let's start at 2005 and go back in time. So I can certainly do that. And let's say I'm going to go back to I'll go back to 1980. So I've got all those years that I've selected, 25 years worth of records. Now, how many homes do I have in the city that match that criteria? 1,893. Now, when I select that information, I've got obviously that name, address, city, state, zip. On my access to the database, this is always visible. That may not necessarily be the case with your library. Some libraries have that where it is viewable. Some choose not to allow that to be viewable because they consider that sensitive. So it really is up to the library if that's visible or not. If in fact it is not, we will still give you the ability to look at it based on the zip codes that these people are within. So you could identify the zip codes that have the majority of these older homes or homes that were built 2005 and earlier.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You bet. Anything else, Marcy?
I think that is, gosh, so much.
It is.
It is. So there are so many things that they can do in that consumer snapshot. Is there anything else that you've seen people really use that's very beneficial besides the age of home or something in your experience?
You know, on the consumer side, it's usually about these designations, right? Those lifestyle designations. So it just depends on what you mentioned earlier when we were visiting about a person that was interested in pop-ups. I helped a patron when I was out in LA last summer. I did several programs for various libraries around the LA area. And there was one lady in particular who stood out. She was a chef by training, was done working for someone else, but wasn't prepared financially to open her own location. So she was going to take her skills on the road, shall we say, and do some pop-ups. So we talked about using the business database to identify. I planted this seed. You know, it would be great if she could predetermine, obviously ahead of time, where she was going to have these pop-ups, and then she could go into those areas both on the business database and on the consumer side to identify people that might be interested or businesses that might be interested in frequenting her location, right? So we identified on the consumer side those folks that were into gourmet food and wine. So that was going to be her target audience. And then literally what we did was we went in, we did identify some home incomes, and then we went into the map-based search tool and we used that as our defining point, if you will. And we just went in, and I'll just go into the city again here. And let's say that this is one of where I'm going to have my pop-up. So what we did was we took that true radius and we just went out a few blocks. So I can go out 1 block, 2 blocks, 1 mile, 2 miles, you know, up to 150 miles. So as you can see, I'm already out about, I'm going to go half there. So I have 6 results of people that match my criteria in that particular spot. If that's where I wanted, if I wanted to send them a marketing piece, by all means, I could do so. And I can get to those 6 records. And I don't think I didn't select any home incomes. That doesn't matter at this moment. But I could then obviously make this a group that I was going to send a mailer to let them know about my pop-up. And we have added this mailing address option as well in the consumer lifestyles. And I don't believe that this was available before, Marcy. So notice I can only include records with a highly deliverable. If I were including or in an area that was kind of that rural route, I could choose to exclude those rural routes without a PO box, right? Or post office box. Just depends on how I want to frame that. So know that that's always something you could do as well.
That is a brilliant use case. I think that our business owners will really get a lot of out of that. Thank you for sharing that.
Excellent. The other thing that I would encourage is our historical information. If you're looking to open a business, you could always go into the historical business database and you could do a search for that particular industry and then look at that industry over time. How is that industry doing? Is it gaining? Has it plateaued? Is it declining? What might be happening within that industry? And you can make it as broad as, maybe I did this for a marketing class. We looked at an industry that has gained in popularity of tattooing. So I can select that as my driver. I've added that to my selected field. These are all of those years. Notice I mentioned 1997. They wanted to do it from 2000 and they wanted to do it to 20. So we did that frame and we looked across the entire United States. So here are all of my records across the United States as it relates to tattooing. And I can then chart this information to see how that industry has been doing, right, over time. So here's a great way it's one thing to have all those records, but I can now make this much more actionable if I understand what's happening within that industry. And look at what's happening within that industry. Obviously, in the year 2000, fairly small, right? But it's continued to increase over time. And I could be looking at this in my county, maybe in 2 or 3 surrounding counties. I could be looking at this maybe based on a map search that I've done of an area. However you want to frame that, I can get to this kind of insight.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yes, I could see what that would be very useful as well.
Oh yeah. So it sometimes the only limitation might be our imagination in terms of our use of these various tools and filters within.
And this is something that people can just play around with. You can't break it, right?
You can't break it. Yep. If sometimes, like I said, I'm click happy, and I might click a little too quickly, and I end up with a spin going. Easiest way to clear that out, select reference solutions, brings you right back to the home page, and then you can go back into the module that you were in.
Fantastic. Well, Bill, I really appreciate your time today. Appreciate your expertise.
Thank you so much.